Good day, we're learning this Maimer by Tiye Mishakela. Today is Chodesh Adar, Tafshin Pevov 5786, 2026. And we are about to start chapter 9, which is on page 155. Let me read briefly the summary on page 154. The charge, quote, "There will not be a woman who loses her young or who is barren," focuses on developing the spiritual emotions of love and fear and ensuring that they thrive. To explain, offspring are analogies for love and fear, for they are brought into being that is born through meditation. There are two types of barren women. One who is lacking a womb entirely, and who, though possessing a womb, is still incapable of conception. The spiritual counterpart to the first type is a person who lacks even the intellectual arousal that could lead to emotions. This deficiency results from his being a full vessel, filled with his own concerns. The spiritual counterpart to the second type of barrenness refers to a person who cannot tap the essential energies necessary to actually produce spiritual love and fear. So again, the second type of barrenness is a person who cannot tap the essential energies. The charge, last paragraph, "There will not be a woman who loses her young," brings out a further point, right? Lo Tiye Mishakela. That's in English. This means there won't be a woman who loses her young. This brings out a further point. Even after our spiritual emotions of love and fear have been born, one must nurture them with the necessary care to enable them to thrive. So that's the last thing that we learned yesterday. Let's get right to the text, page 155. There is another point which a person must take counsel within his soul. This last phrase is quoted in Tanya. In reference 70 gives you chapters 14, 26 et al. Okay. So the Rebbe is saying now, there's another piece of advice that I need to share with you in order to accomplish everything we've learned before. Let's see what he says, that is. Even when a person serves Hashem properly, whether it be with the comprehension in his mind, he understands properly, and whether it be with the emotions of the heart, he has the right emotions in his heart for Hashem. They're very palpable and real and felt, where you actually feel a love feeling for God or a fear feeling for God. Ve'enam dimyonis shav, and they're not fantasies. Many times we convince ourselves we have love and fear for God, and it's a fantasy. In Yiddish, a baba maisa, baloney. But we're talking about someone who is real with himself and really assesses who they are and what they're really feeling. Rather, this person has, like I just said, true love and awe for Hashem, and his feelings are also felt in his performance. Like I told you yesterday, when he puts on tefillin, his heart is pulsating with love for Hashem. When he helps someone in a soup kitchen, he's doing a good deed. He feels it in his bones. When he's in the presence of greatness, of Jewish holy greatness, he's in awe. And so he feels it in the performance of what he's doing. Shenoisiv al kiyum, next page. Shenoisiv al kiyum atayro mitzvahs, bepoyim, mamish. In addition to him doing the actual deed, he puts on the tefillin, he puts on the mezuzahs, he serves someone the hot soup. Yodeyahu kavanas ha-mitzvahs. He knows the objective, what we call the kavanah, the intention of the mitzvah. V'yodea gam, he also knows hamshachos shenasos al yedei kiyum ha-mitzvahs. Now, when's the last time you knew what particular thing you're drawing down by doing a particular mitzvah? Well, there are some people who have studied, and let's say they study Kabbalah, and they know that the Arizal writes for this and this mitzvah, you draw down this and this. So at least they kind of have the right pipelines. They know that a positive and positive go together. A and A go together. Maybe that's what he's referring to. They know what is happening when they do a particular mitzvah. And he gives an example. When a person is immersed in the service called charity tzedakah, he draws down in the vector, in the line of chesed. He gives charity, so he's doing chesed. So he draws down that aspect of God that's called benevolence, chesed. And through the service of withholding, stopping, preventing himself, which is known as gvura, mishpat goymer b'Yaakov, he brings judgment to Yaakov, meaning law and order to Jacob, to the Jews. He draws down an element and energy of Hashem in the style and manner of discipline, gevura. Number 3, and when he studies Torah, which is the middle line, the middle vector, then he draws down what's called kav emtsoi. So we have 3 kavs. We have kav chesed, the side of chesed, kav gvura, the side of gvura, and kav emtsoi, the middle one, which goes up higher actually to Hashem. And that's through limud HaTorah. Until he reaches a point that his service to Hashem is in a manner hamanuvis b'diuk loshen hakosov, next page, which is emulated by the preciseness of the verse. Va'avadetem es Hashem Elokeichem. You shall serve Hashem your God. Sheshem Hashem. Here it says the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Tetragrammaton Havayim, which refers to Hoya, Hoive, V'yeh Ke'echad. He was, he is, and he will be an all-in-one. And higher does his service accomplish that he draws down the Yud Kei Vav Kei energy, which even transcends the progressive nature of the world, called Ishtalshalos. So when we say Va'avadetem as Hashem, you shall serve Yud Kei Vav Kei, you shall serve the energy of God. I'm sorry. Va'avadetem, when you serve Hashem in the proper way, as Hashem, you touch Yud Kei Vav Kei, and that becomes Elokeichem, your God. Elakash Elochem. That energy that you touch through your Avodah, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei, and even higher than Yud Kei Vav Kei, becomes Elokeichem, Koichacho V'chayosecho. Your power and your vitality. It's not as though hey, I'm touching Yudke Vovke, and it remains wherever it remains, and I remain a servant. I remain a regular guy, uninspired. No, if you do it properly, the highest form of God's being and essence, i.e., Yudke Vovke, becomes Hashem Elokeichem, Elokash Elokem. It becomes who you are. It pervades your being. Look what he says. Your powers and your vitality. Says the Rebbe, even when you're at this level, you have to be careful. You shouldn't have satisfaction from your service. You know who I am. I'm a man who davens and learns and connects with God and brings it down into my daily life. Wow, I have such satisfaction for that. It says the Rebbe, the Pasuk is telling you, you are not to have satisfaction even from an experience that you're at. She'oz, Nisha, next page. Because if you do have satisfaction, guess what happens, Mark? What happens is you remain standing and being at one place and you don't climb the ladder. In Yiddish, stellt sich up means he stops. Stellt means stands, but it means he stops. Und geht nicht weiter, and doesn't go further. Ki neusel sheherike des Sfiras Rotzen yochel ligroim lekach sha'ava v'yira shekvar noldu v'nizgal lo'yiu b'kiyumam. In addition to the fact that having satisfaction from your efforts and your work can cause that the love and fear that you had and were even revealed will not be everlasting, which is the spiritual malady Shazel called Mishakela, analogous to a woman who has a baby but loses her child. So too here, you had inspiration, but it got lost, it dissipated and went away. And that's because of the satisfaction that you had. Says the Rebbe, in addition to what might happen later from having satisfaction in your service of God that will dissipate, in addition to that, even at the time when you're serving God with love and fear, if it's done with satisfaction, your service will be limited, measured and limited. Based on the measurement of the satisfaction that you have from doing it. In other words, Hillel, if you do something that's based on your satisfaction, the result will be almost only how much satisfaction you have at that time. And another moment, you won't have satisfaction, so you won't do it. Or you'll have less satisfaction, so it won't be as inspiring. That's so the verse says, Tiye Mishakela. There will not be a situation of a Mishakela v'akore bartzecha. Now the Rebbe focuses on the word bartzecha, in your land. Bartzecha daike. It's missing a dalet, another mistake. Before the yud, it should be a dalet. The precise language used in the Torah of the word is artzecha. She'oretz hu meloshin rotzen. Oretz, etymology is eretz, which is associated with rotzon, ratzah, to yearn, to desire. Hainu shle'yurgish etzloi afilu sfias rotzin bilevad. It shouldn't be felt by the person any satisfaction of his own desire and will. Upshita shelo. Next page, Niragoshim. In other words, like this. Here we're talking about satisfaction within the mitzvah, within the good deed. That one should avoid having that. Because if your good deed and your mitzvah is based on your satisfaction, it's limiting and it won't last. Surely, the Rebbe says, having outside satisfactions of all kinds of wills and wants and desires that pleasure you is definitely not acceptable. Also, Klei Molik, as we said earlier, then you are, quote, a full vessel, she'ena machzik, that cannot hold any more liquid, in this case, any more refinement. She'en le beis kibul klal, in that situation, you don't have a womb, a receptacle at all. P'chinas Aleph da koranal, this is the first malady that we mentioned before. Next paragraph, page 160. Mamshich b'kosov, so the verse continues. Es mispar yomecho amali. Hashem says, when you will avoid this satisfaction, this situation, I will fulfill your days. So this is the advice. In order, this advice is given in order to impact your soul, not to have satisfaction from doing God's will. What does this mean? So he explains, when a person takes the time to meditate and contemplate, Hashem gives me a certain set amount of days that I'll be on earth. Yomim, quoting a verse in Tehillim, Yomim yetzaru v'lo yechod behem. God creates days for you to reveal God. Loi pachus v'lo yoser. We are not getting one less day and one extra day. You hear that? When a person passes on, it's exactly the day and time Hashem says, I want you back. Uv'chol yom, and every day, b'chol shon, every hour, uv'chol rega, and every minute, tzarech lavad abedosoi, a person needs to serve God, lemalish lichusoi, to fulfill their mission ba'al medain, on earth. Is there? Everyone has a mission. And every moment, we'll have to think about one thing, to fulfill the mission, to do the mission. Harehu torud b'zeh, kol kach. Next page, the Rebbe says a person should be so occupied with this, to the point that he doesn't have any time to think about about levels. Where am I at? What's going on with my soul? My friend, you have a certain amount of days on earth. God has a mission for you. That's all you should be thinking about. Not, do I have 6 points, brownie points, 55? Where is my soul going? That is superfluous. And if you do that, you're taking away from what you're supposed to be doing, which is your mission. Let's continue. This is a great teaching coming up. This would be similar to the teaching of this rabbi named Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He says, quote, Eini Adeya, I don't know, be'eza derech melichin oisi. In what path I will be led? Will I be led to paradise or purgatory? Gehenna or Gan Eden or Gehenna? And everyone asked the question, this rabbi, he was such a holy guy. He was such a sage, such a tzaddik. He has a doubt that he's not going to paradise. It's ridiculous for him to think for a moment that he's going into purgatory. So the Rebbe says, amongst the explanations to this question, there is the following. Because he was so occupied to fulfill his mission, he didn't have the time to pay attention to his levels. This means, next page, page 162, he was so immersed and so occupied, Zeifel gewesen verjuckt, verengt und vertrunken. He was basically very occupied, pressured, and immersed, fulfilling his mission every day, uvechol shah, and every hour, uvechol reg, and every minute, to the point he doesn't know what's going on with his intellect and his character. Surely, he had no idea what's going on with the hidden levels of his soul. What an explanation. The Rebbe says that, you know why Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai made that statement? Because he was occupied and immersed in doing the mission. So he truly had no idea where he's at. You can only have an idea where you're at if you stop and think, where am I at? But if you never took the time to think that way, you don't know. And of course, when did he make that statement? Before his passing. Because then the Torah obligates you to make an account of your life. So he did. He says, where am I? Where am I going? Am I going to Gehenna or to Gan Eden? That was the first free moment that Torah sanctions and obligates one to make a cheshbon. But at every other time, making a cheshbon, making an account, is a waste of time. A waste of time because you're supposed to be working and doing and not thinking about where am I at. That's the explanation here in the Maimer. The Mazeh moving, the Mekolshkem v'Kal v'Choyma, this explains, needless to say, when you're immersed in this mission in the way that the Rebbe mentioned, it's not possible for you to have satisfaction, self-satisfaction from doing Hashem's will. Because by knowing that every moment you're there to fulfill God's mission. And if a minute passes that you don't serve Hashem because you're thinking about your own soul, where am I at? Not only could you have gone up and elevated your own service, you could steig, you know the word. You could be diligent. And he didn't do so. So not only have you missed that moment of opportunity of growing in serving God, and you took the time to think about yourself, but more so, at this moment that you're not doing your mission, these are outrageous yet so true words. You're rebelling against God, the King of Kings, because that moment you're not fulfilling your mission. It's a merida b'melech. It's a rebellion against God, the King. The King says, Menashe, do your job, work, serve God. Don't think about yourself. And as soon as you think about yourself, that's a rebellion. But I'm thinking about good things. Where am I at? It's the wrong timing. What do they say? Everything is in timing. You got the wrong timing. So this is this. And when the Rebbe was saying these words, I think he was very emotional. Weiter. So when you are involved in this activity of fulfilling your mission, not only won't you have satisfaction, self-satisfaction, but which means earthliness, by the contrary, that when man fragt him, was es bei dir mitten when he's asked, what's going on with your earthliness, meaning your love, your fear, your zoyaku shaiterois, he screams out, next page 154. B'mar nafshoi This is the way I was told that Rebbe said it, because he was very, Mali vos mir rotzein, Mali rotzein, Mali tainug, Mali avo, Mali yore. But he said in Yiddish, who cares about the will? Who cares about the pleasure? Who cares about the love? Who cares about the fear? All to God. At this moment, thinking about it is a crime, is a rebellion. I'm not talking here about his own wishes, his own taivas. We're talking about spiritual ratzon and tainug and ava and yira. In Yiddish, she says, was mir ratzon, was mir tainug, available on page 164. Was mir ava, was mir yira. Keitzad yochel lachshef alin yonim shel madregos. And the Rebbe says, as he was explaining, how can one think about levels where he's at? He has to stand at the border. You hear that? There shouldn't pass even one moment in a manner that he's rebelling against the kingship, God forbid, because due to the lacking of milishul shlichus beregazu, not fulfilling the mission this moment. You're on the border. If you turn your head for a moment, you could cause defeat. But all I wanted to do is to see if my friend is all right. That is not your mission. If your mission is to stand with your gun or whatever and guard the border and look this way, anything else is a rebellion. So all the excuses you have, and good ones, are not justified at that moment. And that's what he says here. That if we take time to think about what's going on with my soul during the time of the mission, it's a rebellion. I just want to say, comes Thursday night, or every night when you make an account, that's a time when you do think about, how did my day go? But Rabbi Yochanan, in the scenario of Rabbi Yochanan Mazakai that we're talking about he made a cheshbon of his whole life. It wasn't the day, it was like, his time was coming. He knew he was passing on, whatever, he was told. So now he has to say, so what did I do with my life? Because he still could do tshuva. A person can do tshuva as long as he can breathe and he's alive to the last moment. If a person was a sinner and was no good and all of a sudden, 30 seconds before he dies, he says, Hashem, I'm doing tshuva, I really mean it, I promise you, if you give me, whether you give me more life or not, I'm yours, I'm going to change my way. And then he dies, he's died with tshuva. And you know what the Gemara says in Kedushin? How does it tzaddik gomer? The Gemara says he's a complete tzaddik. Even though all his life he lived like a terrible person. But if you do tshuva, if it's really tshuva, not if it's fake tshuva, if it's really tshuva. I want to finish the Maimah. The chapter. When a person fulfills the commandment, Tiye Mishakela, there shouldn't be a woman that loses her child or is barren in your land. A person does whatever he can, that he should have true love and all for Hashem, that have a continuation of existence. And as we learned in this chapter, without self-satisfaction, then Hashem adds to him, and God promises him from above that there won't be. In other words, if you do, remember there's two taichin lo tia, you shouldn't do, and there won't be. If we do this activity, this is how we behave, then Hashem says, I will do my part, and I promise you that you won't have these things in your situation. B'loshen haftocha, mishakela v'akore batzecha, you won't have a situation of Mishakela, Vakora in your land. Any thoughts, anybody? This is this mimer, and this chapter is in Chabad, in the Rebbe's Chabad, the modus operandi of the Rebbe's approach and vision to Torah and Yiddishkeit in our generation, what we just learned. Until the Rebbe, including all the Rebbes and Chassidim and Chassidisin, this idea was, this is called self-satisfaction, to think about your own life. And the Rebbe teaches here, it's on one hand, it's a very, very lofty experience, but if you think about it, it is so true. Everything, you have a mission to do. Thinking about, am I there, am I not there, where am I going? All of that is a disturbance from the mission. I wanted to say, I heard once from Rabbi Schusterman in Los Angeles. He was talking about fundraising, and he said, please mute yourself. Menashe, please mute yourself. So he said, people say when it comes to raising money, oh, I have to help my wife. I got to do carpool. I got to do this. I got to do that. I have to make a phone call. And they find all the excuses not to get out and knock on doors. He says, you're missing the point. If your job, again, if that's your responsibility, it's not just fundraising, it's putting on film with Jews too, or teaching Torah, or helping Jews. In other words, we justify our not doing the mission with holy excuses, and it's really baloney. It's really, in other words, no one's asking of you to. Of course, you have to be a mensch and you have to be helpful in the house. I'm not talking about that. You should be an arrogant person, to not help your wife and children and family. I'm not talking. We're talking about, you have to know your mission. And this is, by the way, this is a mistake people make. Good people, holy people, where they go off to the left with good things. That's not what you were That's not what you were charged for. I remember when I once spoke to Rabbi Chadikov, the Rebbe's secretary. This was when we were students in LA, older students, and I had a complaint against the Rosh Hashiva, something. I forget what it was right now. And he called, and I asked for a meeting because I was going to inform the one who sent us under the Rebbe to LA as students that our Rosh Hashiva is really not being fair to us. And he stopped me in my tracks, and he pulled out the little Hayom Yom, and he said, there's a teaching here that if you are on the front and you go away from your position because you think there's a breach elsewhere, you haven't done right. And on the contrary, your temporary helping of the situation there allows the enemy to come in from where you were standing and protecting the country. In other words, he said to me, you see this. You have tunnel vision. The Rosh Hashiva sees the whole situation. That's what he told me. Got to stay focused on the mission. And this is very difficult because, again, we're not talking about, our own things, our own shtuyot, our own stupidities and the ridiculous things. We're talking about holy excuses. There's still an excuse. And this is why this chapter in this mimer is such a very important one to relearn and to rethink, and why it's become the sisma, they say in Hebrew, the marketing line of the Rebbe's Chabad for our generation is here. The same as Mashiach. The Rebbe didn't lose track. At the end of the day, what's our goal? To bring Mashiach. That's it. We have to bring Mashiach. But we're learning and mitzvahs and this. It's all nice and good. You got to bring Mashiach. That's the bottom line. If you haven't done so, then don't lose focus. Stay focused to the mission. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see everyone tomorrow. Good Chodesh. Good Chodesh.